Hello, today I'm joined by Nick Fisher, who is one of our yoga teachers at our Brighton studio. If you've been to his class on a Tuesday evening, it's yin and release, but it's actually release with breath work. So Nick is also a certified breath coach, and we are very excited today just to talk all about breath, which off camera you told me is your favorite topic ever.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
So welcome.
Thank you, Nova. Yeah, it's good to be here. Yeah, when I'm teaching in the studio, we don't really have a lot of time to go through in depth some of these subjects, so I appreciate having the opportunity to talk about it. Just a little background. So I'm a yoga teacher. I've been teaching for 7 years, I think. I'm teaching at Warrior One for quite a few years. And I'm a certified breath coach. So what is that? Well, I help people learn breathing techniques to improve not just physical functioning, so whether it's movement or posture, but also to help with mental clarity and focus. So I teach small groups, I teach corporate classes, and I teach individuals. Basically just spreading the gospel of how to breathe well. And it's important to know how much it impacts our daily life.
So we're going to kick off with a breath practice.
Yeah. So we'll talk a lot about it, but I felt why not start with a little bit of breath awareness? Maybe think of it as an offering to your own breath. Now, if you're at home and you're doing the dishes or if you're driving, maybe don't close your eyes for this, right? But you can follow along and bring some conscious awareness to your breathing. All right. You ready?
Am I going to close my eyes?
If you would like to.
Okay, I will. Yes.
So, yeah. If it's okay for you, you can close down the eyes, or you can just soften the eyes a little bit. Find a little bit more of an upright position with your spine, your head over your shoulders, spine over hips. And first, simply notice your breath. Notice movements in and out. You can think of your breath as the most intimate friend that you will ever have. It was there when you were born, the first thing you did when you were born, and it'll be there until the end. It'll be the last thing that you do. Also, the breath, it can really reflect and it really understands whatever's happening in your life. So if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling tired, angry, anxious, right, the breath is the first thing to respond to that. So notice as you take a few more breaths, just what's showing up. What is the breath reflecting to you? And now take a few slower breaths down towards the belly, right? Allow a couple qualities, the quality of smoothness, right? So no strain, no tightening, smoothness and softness and length. All right, notice if your belly is tight, can you soften there? Let the belly expand easily. And and just notice how far out the breath comes out of the nose. So if you think about a big breath as going really far out, or can you start to bring some conscious awareness so that it feels like the breath is just coming out maybe 10 centimeters, right? And just keeping it close, keeping that sense of softness. And take a few more breaths, just soft inhale, start to take in less air. Right? The body doesn't need too much air, so see if you can tone it down, half, 3/4, just a little bit less breath, and keep that smooth, long exhale. All right, relaxed inhale, and easy, long exhale. All right, soften even further, right? A really quiet breath, kind of like a mouse's breath, just but still relaxed, so still without any strain. Okay. Returning to your normal breath, just sense kind of the general vibe, sense how your energy levels are, sense your mental clarity or business. And you might have already felt some of the impacts of what breathing can do for helping to balance out the mind and the body. And then, we'll talk a little bit more about that today. Yeah.
I was just thinking as I was sitting here, even under the lights and camera, And everything we've got in this studio, it still feels so calming and relaxed. And it's just within, a minute or two, completely change your state. It's amazing.
Definitely. And when we, talking about a subject like breath work, it is quite a big subject. There's a lot of different approaches. So today we'll be exploring a style of breath work called Buteyko breathing.
How do you spell that?
Now you're challenging me, right? Buteyko.
Not how I thought.
Yeah, Buteyko. So it's a style of breathing that was developed by a Russian physician back in the mid to early 1900s, Konstantin Buteyko. And it's a little different. We'll talk about some of the similarities and differences to other styles of breath, whether it's yogic or other types of breath, because there's a lot out there today. There's a lot of emphasis on big breathing, kind of this idea of go big or go home, which is great. Like you can do that for half an hour, but then how do you breathe for the other 23 hours a day? Or how do you breathe to bring balance and this kind of relaxed awareness into your life? And that's more the emphasis and the focus of Buteyko breathing, is finding mental stability and finding physical ease and balance. Yeah.
So you mentioned breath work is obviously such a big topic and kind of a hot topic at the moment as well. Yeah. Where do we start?
How you breathe is one of the most basic systems or functions of the body, and it has a direct impact to all other aspects of your physiology. So whether that's your nervous system, whether that's your digestive system, your endocrine system, your immune system as well. So all of these systems in your body that you need to maintain a good balance for good health, are directly impacted by how you breathe. And it's one of those things, we breathe so often that we don't really think about it. It's just kind of in the background, right? So hopefully today, as we talk through some of the main ideas, you can understand and get some appreciation for how important good breathing or functional breathing is to help, with your physical system, right? And then from a mental point of view, right, if any of the listeners have stress or a busy mind, I think that's 100% raising hands right now, me included. Yeah.
Even my hand is quite high.
Even yoga teachers, right? Busy, stressful. Right. Then how you breathe plays a hugely important role in maintaining a calm mind and finding a little bit of peace and space in an otherwise busy life. And we're going to learn some tips and tricks today that you're going to be able to apply at any time. It doesn't have to be on the mat in a yoga studio. That's good. That's great to do that. But this is something that you can do while commuting to work or waiting in the queue at the grocery store or having a difficult conversation with a spouse or with a kid. So these are techniques that you can apply everywhere to find greater balance. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you want to talk specifically around, mental and physical benefits?
Sure. Yeah. Let's start with the physical benefits, because I think a lot of people, it's more relatable to, or more understandable from a scientific point of view. What are the physical benefits of having a good breath? So let's go back to Konstantin, right? Good old Russian friend, Konstantin Buteyko. He initially came up with this breathing style because he worked as a physician with really sick people. So people with respiratory illnesses like emphysema, right? COPD, asthma, right? So he was dealing with a lot of very sick people, and he himself was really stressed, overworked, burned out. All right. And then he had kind of an epiphany or an awareness that a lot of sick people, you can tell that they're sick by how they're breathing. So if someone is injured or ill, the breathing will be very loud, very big, right? Very agitating. So he was like, well, what's the opposite of that? Maybe if we don't do that, it might help. And so he tried it on himself first, like any good practitioner would do, and found that by decreasing his breath, by taking softer breaths and diminishing kind of his loud breathing, he was able to find a lot more balance in his own health. And then when he applied it to the hospital that he worked at, training his patients on how to breathe better, he noticed significant improvements across the board. Because as I mentioned before, breathing impacts all aspects of our physiology. Right, so it's a great starting point to help find some health and integrity, right, within the body, within the physical system. And it's not just for helping sick people get better. That's an important aspect, I think. But also when it comes to athletes and to movement, right? Functional breathing, which I'll define a little bit later. But functional breathing is the basis for functional movement. So if you're not breathing well, whether it's a yoga class or running or doing any kind of activity, if you're not breathing well, then your body won't be as integrated and you'll have a greater risk of injury. You'll have longer recovery times. Yeah, so it plays into that as well. Yeah, so that's the physical side of things. And we can talk a little bit more about, the biochemistry of it. But also, I think a huge aspect is the mental side, right? So I guess this is a good time to talk about yoga, right? What's the point of yoga? Why do we have a yoga studio? Why do we teach yoga? It's to do beautiful poses for Instagram, right? No. I mean, cool if that's you, do you. But for me personally, and I think for a lot of other teachers, right, the purpose of a yoga class and a yoga practice is to bring about a greater sense of calmness, of ease, sense of freedom, a sense of balance, right, through all aspects of life, whether it's personal or interrelational. So breath is important, and it's one of the key factors of the yogic practice, right? We have this practice of pranayama, which is one of Patanjali's 8 limbs. And it's sort of the doorway into the more subtle and deeper practices of managing your senses, of managing your meditation and focus and concentration. All right, so breath work is hugely important from a mental point of view because once you start establishing good breathing patterns, a functional breathing pattern, the kind of noise of the mind dies down, right? Breath can be used as a tool to help you understand your inclinations, your kind of mental patterns, your behaviors as well. And then it'll help give you space to work with that, to kind of release yourself from some of those tendencies that maybe don't help you show up the way you would want to, as an authentic person. So physical sides, mental sides, yeah, we could go many places from here.
Yeah. So what is functional breath or functional breathing? Or do you want to demonstrate it before we talk about it?
That's a really good question. Yeah, how do you define functional breathing? So this is a very specific definition, right? I'm sure other people will have different definitions, but one of my teachers, Patrick McCune, who's an Irish teacher who has the most beautiful Irish lilt. You should hear him say breath. Take a breath in, take a breath out. Gorgeous. But he defines functional breathing as the ability to take an inhale and take an exhale and be able to pause after that exhale for a good amount of time, right? So let's try an exercise together. I think it'll help us with this. Okay, so this exercise is called a comfortable pause. It's different from an uncomfortable pause. Comfortable pause, yeah.
I was trying not to laugh.
So simple instructions. You can do this even if you're driving or if you're doing other things. You can just be aware of your breath, right? So first, right, soften. You can close the eyes or just soften and just come back into awareness of your breath. Right, let the breath relax. Right, and then take a slow, regular breath in and a long breath out. And then pause after the exhale. All right, we'll count. Okay, and then when you're ready, take another breath in. So that was about 13 seconds pause, 14 seconds pause. If you notice when you take a pause, if you didn't last that long, or if you felt the strong desire to take a breath in, what I call breath hunger, right? Then that means, right, it's challenging to hold breath like that. And for a lot of people, there can be emotional issues involved with holding the breath as well. So any variety of reasons. How'd you go with that though? Was that okay for you?
I was anxious because I was counting.
Okay.
I was like, and then I got to 8 and then I thought, how much longer is it going to be? So I had that, in my head about I need to release the breath.
Okay, let's try it one more time. And this time I just want you to hold the breath out until you feel the slightest amount of breath hunger. So we're not pushing hard, right? We're not doing anything too strong. But as soon as you feel a distinctive need to breathe, take a regular breath in. Okay, so let's try it one more time. Find a regular breath in and easy breath out. And then one more. Slow breath in. Exhale to release. Hold the breath after the exhale. Try to relax into it. Try not to force. Just notice how the body is holding the breath out. And when you need to take a breath, take one. Okay. And then releasing. Right, so that's a comfortable pause. And functional breathing, definition of functional breathing is being able to have a comfortable exhale and hold for about 20, 25 seconds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's quite a lot.
That's a long, that's bordering on uncomfortable for me.
Yes, yeah. And if you look at elite athletes, people who have, really strong physiologies, and even yogis as well, they're able to hold their breath for 40 seconds to 60 seconds. And then they're able to come back into a regular breathing, right? So it's not like they're huffing and puffing.
Sure.
So contrast that with someone who's sick or ill or stressed. It's going to be harder for you to relax into that, right? The body is going to want to take in a bigger breath. So if you're really ill or sick, you might have a 5-second hold or even a 10-second hold. And this is kind of the crux of Buteyko breathing, right? How comfortable you are holding your breath out is an indicator of how much CO2 you have in your system, right? Carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide, it's kind of this myth that carbon dioxide is bad. It's like, oh, have a full exhale, get rid of all that carbon dioxide. I mean, look at the atmosphere, right? Carbon dioxide is getting a bad rap in the media. But from a personal physiological point of view, it's essential for quite a few functions in the body, right? So your ability to hold your breath comfortably is an indicator of how sensitive you are to CO2. And how sensitive you are to CO2 is an aspect of your brain, right? Your brain senses CO2 building up, whether it's with movement or holding your breath. And if it gets a little too high, it'll kick in the breath response, right? And so a lot of today's society and lifestyle really make us hypersensitive to CO2. So whether that's lack of sleep, whether that's stress, caffeine, sugar, pretty much all aspects of our lives will make us will impact how sensitive we are to CO2. And why is that important? Well, CO2 is so vital for being able to oxygenate the body. It sounds kind of counterintuitive, but it's this thing called the Bohr effect. It's a little boring, so I won't go into the science, but basically you need CO2 to unlock oxygen into both your body and your brain, right? So CO2 is super essential to releasing oxygen. The more sensitive you are to CO2, the less oxygen you're getting into the body. CO2 is also a vasodilator, so it helps to open airways, it helps to open, right, and dilate soft muscle tissue, whether that's your stomach, your digestion, motility, whether that's the lungs, the throat, and the sinuses, right? So if you're someone, it's asthma season right now. So if you're someone that gets a lot of inflammation, right, by being able to do some of these breath holds, you're going to be able to open the sinuses and help yourself breathe better, right? But for a lot of us, these lifestyle impacts onto our breathing, they've been happening forever, right? So to be able to turn the dial back to invite more functional breathing, it's going to take time, and it's going to take a little bit of patience. Yeah.
The technique that we just practiced, how often per day or per week, and how long do you recommend people do that for if they want to increase the hold to 40 to 60 seconds? Yeah,
definitely. What we just did, it wasn't even really a practice. It was more of an assessment just to see how sensitive you are. But that's a good segue. Let's do a practice. So how do we improve our breathing? There's a couple different ways, but we'll start with a practice. It's called Akasha breathing or subtle breathing. And this gets to the crux of Buteyko's emphasis of breathing less to be able to manage CO2 levels, to be able to balance out the system. So let's try some subtle breathing. Let's get a feel for what it's like.
Sure.
Yeah. Again, if you're operating heavy machinery, please keep your eyes open. It might even be a good time, right? You can listen to the instructions and maybe later revisit, especially if you're busy doing something. I would recommend doing this once you've sat down for a few minutes and you feel like your breath is relaxed and you're in a comfortable position. So maybe just listen to the instructions now if you're not able to practice. But if you are in a comfortable position, if you're able to close your eyes, right, let's start. Again, taking a few soft breaths, let your belly relax, right? Let your breathing rate slow down a little bit. So throughout this exercise, I want you to keep your breath smooth. If you feel strain or agitation, that might indicate you're trying a bit too hard. So you might have to turn down the effort. Let's keep it very relaxed. Take a smooth breath, right? Inhaling, expand the belly a little bit. And a little long breath out through the nose. And a little pause at the end. And again, soft breath in, quiet breath in. Long breath out. Soft breath in, maybe even less air. And then relaxed exhale, maybe a little pause. Continue with us, right? Let your body kind of dictate the speed, but I do want you to take a soft inhale and a longer exhale, maybe a little pause. Can you quieten the breath a little bit more so it feels like you could hardly hear or sense the breathing? It's a very soft breath. And find that kind of zen edge of tolerable discomfort. So a little bit of challenge, but not enough challenge that it takes your peace. You're still calm and relaxed, but find just the softest of edges where you feel the desire to breathe a little bit bigger. All right, keep the belly relaxed. Keep the exhales long. And just take a moment to reset, just take a few bigger, more conscious breaths. We're gonna try it again because it's a little awkward the first time just because you're getting used to a style of breathing that's very different from what we practice on the mat in the yoga studio, what we normally see, right, for breath work. So it is challenging because you are working with your own personal CO2 levels. It's a very tailored exercise because I want you to find a level of challenge that you can also feel comfortable with, right? All right, let's try it one more time. Did you go all right there? Did that make sense? Or?
I think I'm doing it right. I feel I'm trying to not do extended inhales and exhales and make them shorter, so I'm just at the edge of my comfortability, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like smaller inhales, but you want to keep long exhales.
So it's not like I'm hyperventilating, but it does feel in your lungs that you're...
It's a little challenge.
Yeah, challenging.
Yeah, you're kind of CO2 thermostat, which tells you to breathe. It's like, what's happening here?
Yeah.
But you have to play a little bit with it. It is challenging.
Okay,
It is
sure.
challenging. All right, let's try it one more time. Okay. That's right, just coming straight into a soft, relaxed inhale. All right, and a longer exhale. Maybe a little pause if you're comfortable with that. And see if you can maybe take half a breath or even a quarter a breath of a full breath. And then have a long exhale, relaxed. You don't have to control it. You don't have to use your mind so much. It's more the feel of it, kind of the sense of breathing out, feeling a little challenge, but only enough challenge that you can still have a smooth, relaxed inhale, partial inhale. right? Relaxed inhale and long exhale. Find that Zen zone of tolerable discomfort. Okay, and then start to come back, take a few breaths. And see if you can notice any shifts or changes physically, mentally from that. So how does the body, the mind react to that style of breath? If it was really agitating or super challenging, right, we don't want any of that. We want to tone that down. All right. There's a lot of overachievers out there. So we need to invite a sense of sattvic awareness, or very calm and balanced awareness. We should never, when it comes to breath work, it should never be pushed really hard. Because once you get that kind of fear or sensitivity, then the mind becomes agitated easily. And the whole point of this is to keep the mind relaxed, right? To reduce some of that agitation. Yeah. How'd you go the second time?
Better. I definitely felt a lot more calm. And you said a cue that resonated with me, which was try not to think about it so much and I was allowing my lungs to guide it rather than my head to guide it.
That's a good space. Yeah.
That was better.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
High five for me.
Yeah, definitely. So so that subtle breathing, you can apply that to a lot of different areas of your life. When it comes to athletics, so if you want to train better let's say as a runner, if you're running, and this will be a good segue into, I kind of want to talk about, I love noses. I want to talk about noses shortly.
Sure, let's do that.
But like with running, there's a kind of a big movement pushing towards nasal breathing while running. Right. And what that does is it keeps a lot more CO2 in the body. The more you breathe through the mouth, the more you kind of get rid of CO2. But by breathing through the nose while running, you keep a higher level of CO2 and it challenges you. So it's similar to this exercise, only you're a lot more physically active. Right. And both these exercise, whether we do this subtle breathing for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, Buteyko would offer up 2 hours of this breathing for people with major health issues, right? But it probably won't start with 2 hours. You got things to do, bills to pay. And then also with runners or athletes, this kind of challenge will help to build your cardiovascular capability, will help you recover more easily to decrease your kind of lactic acid buildup, right? So that's kind of the spectrum of how we build a more functional breath, kind of the very subtle aspect, or much stronger through running, breathing through the nose. Okay. You ready to talk about the nose?
I'm ready.
First of all, sense the nose, right? Just maybe look down at the nose. You can see it sometimes.
For anyone that is watching this on YouTube is thoroughly enjoying us going cross-eyed.
Yeah. So the nose is just the awning for the nasal sinus passages. All right, so bring the tongue to the roof of your mouth and then slide it back towards the soft palate. Right, that's how far back your sinuses, the nasal sinus passages go. If anyone ever did a COVID test, you know that it goes back pretty far.
Yes, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yes. So the nose is just the awning, but there's this whole system, right, that's involved with nasal breathing. So as you breathe in and out through the nose, you get the benefits. There's the nose and the nasal passages, they have 30 different functions for our physiology. Yeah, 30. Don't ask me to list all of them.
It's another podcast.
Yeah. But breathing through the nose, it does things like it air conditions the air, so it'll help retain humidity. It'll help with temperature control. Your nose is basically the first part of your immune system. Right, so breathing through the nose, it captures any particulate matters, has antibacterial capabilities, right? So, and also breathing through the nose, it helps to guide the breath into the lower part of the lung. And the way our lungs are shaped, right, they're kind of bigger, broader at the base. So when you breathe in through the nose, you get more air to the bottom parts of the lungs. And the bottom parts of the lung have greater blood flow and greater ability to capture oxygen. So a lot of good reasons why breathing through the nose is beneficial. And especially during asthma season, just want to emphasize, right, if you're breathing through the nose and you get some plain tree dandruff or whatever into the nose, It takes maybe 15 minutes, half an hour for the body to kind of process that and help to get rid of it, right? If you breathe that same particulate matter directly into the lungs, as if you would be mouth breathing, it can take anywhere from 60 to 120 days to get rid of those particulates.
Wow. That's a vast difference.
It's a vast difference, yeah. So asthma season.
And hay fever, people that have hay fever, which is quite strong at the moment.
Yes, hay fever. Even when there's bushfire season, right? Breathing through the nose is going to be super important to maintain healthy lungs.
Wow.
Yeah. And then another factoid, I love little factoids. So the lungs themselves have so much surface area to capture air, right? The lungs have 30 times more surface area than the skin on our body. So if you can imagine all that stuff, the folding and alveoli, right, to help capture as much oxygen as possible. But all that doesn't matter. So if you can capture all that oxygen, it doesn't really matter, because if you don't have good levels of CO2, the oxygen that you take in doesn't get to where it needs to go. So this is why breathing through the nose, breathing subtly, building up tolerance to CO2 helps to oxygenate through the blood, and also helps to oxygenate the muscles, right, for better physical performance, and helps the mind be more at ease and helps you focus and concentrate.
Wow. Those stats are alarming. Now I feel like I just have to walk around with my mouth closed all the time. Do you want to talk?
I would recommend that.
You would recommend that?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about closing your mouth at night? If anyone's seen this on social media or on the internet, you know, there's mouth taping, is it called?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
which allows you to breathe through your nose while you sleep.
Yeah. It's a bit confronting for some people. I know when I first heard of it, I was skeptical. But the reason why closing your mouth is important at night is because how you breathe at night impacts how you breathe during the day. And how you breathe during the day impacts how you breathe at night, right? Kind of mutually
That makes sense.
reinforcing. Yeah, so if you have a really stressful day, if you have a big dinner, if you have a bunch of alcohol, these things will impact your breathing at nighttime, right? And same thing, if you have a really bad sleep, if you're not able to rest fully, if you are stuffed up from hay fever and you have to breathe through your mouth, then chances are you're going to wake up with a dry mouth, with a headache potentially, and just not be as rested as you would like to be. So this is where mouth taping comes in, because for a lot of, it's kind of a low-hanging fruit when we think about these practices. Like, how do you establish good breathing patterns through the nose? And mouth taping is super helpful because, well, let me explain what it is first. So mouth taping is you take a little piece of tape and you can place it onto the lips, all right? And I'm not talking about like a big thing of duct tape, like hostage situation. That's a little too much. Just a little piece of 3M surgical non-sticky or non-super sticky low adhesive tape. You can pick it up at your local pharmacy.
This way, not this way.
So I like to put a little piece of tape on the lips because in that case, if I need to breathe through my mouth, I can kind of breathe through the sides. So I don't feel like it's a closed seal.
Right.
But some people will close fully if they find that that's
Okay, so
that's
top to
helpful.
bottom rather than left to right.
Yeah, top to bottom, just a little bit. So you get 8 hours of practice breathing through your nose. And the nasal sinus passages, they are soft tissue. So just like a muscle that you would exercise, right? The more you breathe through your nose, the easier it gets. So that's kind of the benefit, is it becomes self-reinforcing habits. These things take a lot of time though, so you don't want to push or rush, right? If there's any kind of discomfort, uncertainty, right? Take a little break. You always want to approach these exercise diligently, so being disciplined, but also being kind of relaxed, not pushing too hard, because otherwise that will cause agitation and won't help you establish good breathing patterns. Yeah. I personally, I do mouth taping because I grind my teeth at night, right? So tight jaw, I think that's very common for a lot of people, having a tight jaw, whether it's stress, anxiety, or any other thing. Rather than wearing a splint, which I did for many years, once I started mouth taping, I noticed that I was able to relax my jaw and my grinding started to decrease as a result. So you'll see a lot of dentists are super supportive of Buteyko breathing, right? Chances are if you go to a dentist and talk about it, they will give you an earful, right? So from a dentist point of view, breathing through the nose rather than the mouth, it has a whole host of benefits for oral health, right, for facial development, for jaw structure, especially for children who are going through developmental stages, right? Breathing through the nose helps to support proper formation of the jaws. But let's take a step back, though, because breathing through the nose sounds good, but for a lot of people, there might be some physical challenges breathing through the nose.
Sure.
Yeah. So if people have a deviated septum, if they have polyps or other growths in the nose, if you have overdeveloped adenoids, tonsils as well, it can be very difficult to breathe through the nose. So if you are impacted by these things, it's helpful to go talk to a physician or a dentist and see how these things might be impacting your breath. And you'll have to deal with the structural issues first before developing these patterns. Yeah. Well, let's talk about how to develop good patterns. All right. So we've done a couple exercises. We did our subtle breathing. We did our comfortable pause just to kind of assess where we're at. We talked about running, breathing through the nose, or walking, breathing through the nose. We talked about sleep tape. And so all these things are super helpful to start calming down the system. But another aspect we can touch on is the kind of mental, emotional impact that happens with the breath. So if you're a teacher, if you're a salesperson, if you talk a lot, if you're breathing a lot out, your CO2 levels will be diminished. So having these comfortable breaths, this subtle breathing will help to regulate your system more. And I'd recommend using the breath as a way to kind of understand how stress impacts your life. There's this idea of svadhyaya in yoga, or self-awareness, understanding what things cause what reactions, what stresses you out, what causes you to feel unsafe, or causes you to be, have poor sleep. So there's this idea of understanding all the little triggers or things that happen in your life. And the breath is a great way to start to develop that capacity. So if you notice every time your boss walks by that your breathing starts to increase, right? The breath can be an important window or doorway into understanding how your emotions are fluctuating throughout the day. I recommend keeping a svadhyaya breath journal. Everyone's into journals now, but have you heard of a breath journal? So noticing what are the factors in your life that impact your breathing? What stresses you out? All right, what calms you down? What allows you to have an easier breath? What lifestyle factors, whether it's eating, drinking, smoking, exercising, how do these impact your ability to breathe easily and freely? So now we can start to get an understanding of how to use breath as a way to bring some stability and understanding of mental factors and stress factors. Yeah, so you can use the breath to understand, and you can also use the breath to help manage, to help invite a calming through the nervous system, to help with sleep and digestion. And so I think we've talked about a lot of different ways that the breath impacts us.
Yes.
Yeah.
What would you say, for somebody that's interested in this and like, this sounds great, what would your kind of core takeaways be for somebody to go out and experience this and grow their breath techniques?
First thing is experiment. Hopefully this podcast, this conversation has helped the listeners realize the importance of breath and all aspects that it impacts. So now that we've established why it's important, experiment. So this is one particular style of breathwork, Buteyko style breathing. There's a lot of really good resources out there. Personally, my interest in breath started with reading James Nestor's book, Breath. What does he call it? The New Science of an Ancient Practice. Fascinating introduction into breath and why it's important and what we can do to improve it. If you want to dig a little deeper into practices, into yoga specifically, I would recommend Restoring Prana by Robin Rothenberg. She talks a little bit more about the pranic aspects, the energy balancing of breathing. If you don't want any of the yogic philosophy, which is totally fine, if you just want the pure physiology side, then I would recommend Oxygen Advantage by Patrick McKeown. He's got a great online app for free that can help introduce people to these practices. So those are some tools, but let your curiosity be a guide as to what works to relax the system, physical, mental, emotional, and just start paying attention to how your breathing starts to change and reflect both the internal and the external events in your life.
I'm a really big fan of habit stacking, right? So when you want to form a new habit, to stack it with something else that you already do. And you mentioned that in yoga, we do pranayama, so we do breath work in classes, but it's very different. So if you wanted to take something that we've learnt today into a yoga class and habit stack with going to yoga, which you might do anyway, what would you recommend doing?
I'd recommend showing up to your class on time, maybe a little early. That's always helpful. And I just got a big thumbs up, yes.
Early is on time.
Early is on time. And sitting quietly and practicing some of these subtle breathing techniques on your own. And chances are when you go into a yoga practice, the teacher will be exploring different pranayama techniques, different from this one. And that's totally fine. Follow your teacher's advice, right? Different breath techniques have different purposes. So teachers will invite different techniques. And then while you are going through the practice, see if you can breathe more through the nose. Notice if you're breathing through the mouth. As I mentioned before, breathing through the nose helps to support physical structure, right? So that your movements are easier and more stable and healthier. And after practice, take a few moments before rushing out, take a few moments to notice any changes to your breathing as a result of class. All right. Usually after you exercise or you find some peace and relaxation, the breath comes easier. Right? So that's the 1 hour of yoga you do every day, right? Because I practice yoga every day. But then the other 23 hours, we've got sleep covered, maybe a little sleep tape, all right? We've got subtle breathing that you can do anywhere on your commute, before you open an email, before going into a new situation, right? Before and after meetings, after stressful meetings. All of these are opportunities to check in with the breath. How's it going? How can I slow it down? Right? So as far as habit stacking goes, start slow. I wouldn't recommend trying to focus on your breathing all the time. It's helpful if you can, but I think start slow. Maybe brushing your teeth, right? Breathing before and after meetings is good. The commute is an excellent way to do that. I used to have challenges with my commute where I would get angry at other people. And once I instituted some soft breathing, all right, eyes open.
Of course, if you're driving. Yeah.
And my emotionality was much more balanced. And I found it easier to be calm about things that would normally stress me out. Yeah. So start slow, find a couple areas you can explore. And I don't want you to take my word for it. Like, it's an experiential practice. So my hope is that as you try it, as you experience it yourself, as you feel the benefits for your focus, for your body, for your mind, that you'll want to look for even more ways to apply it, even more situations where you can check in with your most intimate and best friend, your breath.
I love that. I'm definitely going to try the mouth taping that way, which is from top to bottom, because I was doing the whole thing and I think that was maybe too much. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And also the brushing of the teeth. I think that's something I do quite mindlessly and probably do keep my mouth opened rather than brushing my teeth and breathing through my nose. So I'm going to try those two things.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much for today. I have really loved it. And even under the bright lights and the camera, I feel just so relaxed from those little techniques that we did. So thank you so much.
Amazing. Thanks for having me. It's been great talking.
Thank you.
Yeah.